Colt Harwood rode into Red Valley with nothing more than a dust-covered hat, a scarred saddle, and the kind of past a man don't speak of unless whiskey forces it from his mouth. He had been drifting from ranch to ranch, taking odd jobs, fighting other men's battles, and sleeping under stars that didn't care about the weight a man carried on his soul. When he arrived at the sprawling timber estate of Bruce Lockridge, the richest, roughest, and most feared cattle baron in 3 counties, he was just hoping for steady work and maybe a warm meal that wasn't cooked over a lonely fire. But from the moment Colt stepped onto Lockridge land, something felt off. The ranch hands watched him with an odd mixture of pity and fear, whispering in corners, shutting up quickly whenever Colt approached. And then there was the house. Large as an empire, quiet as a tomb. By sundown, Colt had proven himself mended a fence faster than 3 men could, calmed a wild horse no one dared approach, and stared down a rattler like he'd been born with iron in his blood. Lockridge himself, bushy, bearded and stone-faced, called him into the main house. Colt entered expecting praise, maybe a raise. What he got instead chilled him more than any outlaw's gun. "Boy," Lockridge growled, "I got a proposition. Marry my daughter or leave my land forever." Colt froze. He had heard rumors, everyone in town had, about Lockridge's daughter. They said she was hidden away because she was too hideous for daylight, cursed from birth, face twisted by misfortune or worse. Some said she wore a veil so thick even mirrors refused to reflect her. Colt tried to laugh it off, but Lockridge's glare carved the humor right out of his bones. "I ain't joking. I need a good man to marry her. And you're the only one I've found with guts enough." Colt swallowed, heat climbing his chest. "Why me?" Lockridge leaned forward. "Because I've seen your kind. You're running from something. You need shelter, protection, a fresh start. I can give you all that. But in return you give my daughter a life." Colt stepped back, mind racing. He barely knew the ranch, barely knew the boss, and he certainly didn't want a forced marriage to a woman everyone whispered about like she was a ghost. "Sir," Colt said slowly, "a marriage ain't something you force." Lockridge slammed a massive fist on the table. "This ain't up for debate. My daughter is getting married. Tonight. Either to you or not at all. And if not you, then you best ride out before daylight. Because once word spreads that you insulted my family, not a town in the territory will hire you. I'll make sure you starve before I let that happen." Colt's blood ran cold. He didn't fear many men, but Lockridge was a different breed. Rich enough to crush a man's future. Ruthless enough to do it without losing sleep. Lockridge called his servants, ordering the wedding preparations. Colt felt his freedom shrinking with every candle lit, every curtain drawn, every muttered prayer echoing through the house. Just before the ceremony, one ranch hand, an older man named Silas, grabbed Colt's arm. "Son," he whispered, voice shaking, "don't do it. Nobody sees the girl's face, nobody. I've been here 30 years and I ain't heard her voice once. Folks who enter that room don't come out the same." Colt forced a smile, though fear pooled in his gut. "Silas, I don't got no choice." "You always got a choice," the old man said. "But some choices got teeth." As the clock struck midnight, Colt stood at the altar in the candlelit hall, sweat sliding down his spine. Then the doors creaked open. 2 maids escorted a woman in a flowing white gown, face hidden behind a thick lace veil, hands trembling like she was made of autumn leaves. She never looked up, never spoke, just stood silently beside him, fragile as fading moonlight. Colt's breath hitched. He didn't know whether he was marrying a monster or a mystery, but he knew this: once she lifted that veil, his life would never be the same. Lockridge barked, "Son, lift the veil." Colt hesitated, then reached with shaking fingers. And when he lifted it, what he saw didn't just shock him. It shattered everything he believed. The veil lifted and Colt's breath caught like a lasso around his throat, not in fear but in disbelief. She wasn't ugly. She wasn't even plain. She was breathtaking. More beautiful than any woman he had seen in all his travels. Eyes like storm-kissed sapphire, skin smooth as fresh cream, lips soft and uncertain as though she hadn't smiled in years. But behind that beauty was something deeper: fear. She flinched when he touched the veil, as though expecting him to recoil in horror. Colt's shock melted into quiet anger, not at her, but at Lockridge, who had forced her into this twisted bargain. The preacher cleared his throat awkwardly, unsure how to proceed. Lockridge stood stiff, jaw tight, eyes unblinking. The ranch hands stared in stunned silence, as confused as Colt was. "You," Colt whispered to the bride. "Why does your father hide you?" The woman shook her head subtly, terrified to speak. The preacher hurried through the ceremony, voice cracking, and before Colt could piece together anything, the marriage was sealed. Mr. Lockridge boomed. "It's done. Take her to the West Wing." But Colt didn't move. Instead he faced the boss. "Why'd you lie? Why'd you tell the world she was hideous?" Lockridge's eyes darkened. "Because men destroy what they desire. I raised her to be hidden, safe. No man gets near her unless I choose it, and I chose you." Colt stepped protectively in front of his new wife. "She ain't property, sir. On my land." Lockridge growled. "Everything is." The room tensed, hands drifting toward gun belts. Colt didn't back down. He didn't raise his voice, but something in his stance, perhaps the iron calm of a man who's seen too much, made the ranch hands hesitate. Lockridge snarled. "You'll give her the life I say, or you'll be buried before dawn." Colt didn't answer with words. He took his wife's hand gently. "Mom," he whispered, "do you want to come with me?" Her eyes shimmered, first with terror, then with hope. She nodded. Colt turned to the boss. "We're leaving." Lockridge reached for his gun. "Like hell you are." But he never got the chance to fire. Because the bride, quiet, frightened, hidden all her life, stepped between her father and Colt with a steadiness that made the whole room freeze. "Father," she said, voice trembling yet fierce, "if you shoot him you lose me forever." The ranch hands exchanged horrified glances. They had never heard her speak. Not once. Lockridge's hand shook. "Sweetheart, you don't understand." "I understand enough," she said. "You hid me because you trusted no one. And maybe you had your reasons. But Colt saw me, and he didn't turn away." She squeezed Colt's hand, a silent vote of trust. Lockridge lowered his gun, defeated, aging a decade in a single breath. "Go then," he muttered. "But don't come crawling back." Colt tipped his hat. "I ain't the crawling type." The newly married couple left the mansion behind, riding into the night on Colt's horse, the moon lighting their path like a blessing. For the first time, the bride, whose name was Elora, spoke freely, voice soft as prairie wind. She told Colt how her father lost her mother to outlaws long ago. The loss twisted him, turned love into fear, fear into control. He hid Elara from the world, believing it was the only way to keep her safe. Colt listened quietly, heart aching for her. "Elara," he said, "you deserved better." She smiled shyly. "Maybe better found me tonight." As dawn touched the horizon, they reached a small ridge overlooking open land. Vast, untouched, free. Colt turned to the viewers. "Yes, you who are hearing their story now," and said, "A man can spend his whole life running. But the moment he stands for what's right, that's when his real story begins." And Elara added softly, "If you want to hear what happens next, subscribe. Our story is just getting started, because legends aren't born from ease. They're born from choices. Hard ones. Dangerous ones. The kind that change everything."